You are watching Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting on Alabama Football YouTube. My name is Trey Yanity, joined as always by best-selling author, 15-year veteran, Bama Insider Zone, Andrew Bone. You can find him on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone. Here as always, talk about recruiting and a lot of recruiting news to talk about. Another junior day since the last time we met. Big out-of-state guys, big in-states, of course, in attendance. Let's start with some of these out-of-state guys. I want to know how your last week was as well, Bone, but give me the rundown on Kamani Mclean, one of the biggest defensive back recruits in session this weekend. What are your thoughts on him? How was his weekend in Tuscaloosa, and how's your last week been?
I can't complain. I always have a good time. So, the weather was pretty nice this past weekend. So got a chance to go out and enjoy that sunshine. Of course, it's a little cooler today, and after that rain came yesterday. But great weekend. But let's talk about Junior Day. That's what everybody wants to hear about. And obviously, this was the first big weekend, since the dead period ended. Recruits haven't been on campus since late January, and we've seen some changes. Obviously, we had signing day in early February, which wasn't really that eventful for Alabama, except for Danny Lewis Jr. Committing and signing with Alabama. But and obviously you had some transfer news that popped up. But as far as moving forward and really getting these top recruits in the 2023-2024 recruiting class on campus started back this past weekend. And we also saw some big hires by the Alabama coaching staff over the course of the last month and a half. So a lot of new faces on the staff, different players getting a chance to get a chance to spend some time with those guys. And some of them meeting them for the first time. Some of them have met them before. If they were at other schools, or at least have some FaceTime calls with them. But great weekend in T-Town. A lot of big names that were in Tuscaloosa. No official visitors. These were all just unofficial visits for Junior Day, getting a chance to see the campus, spend some time with coaching staff, tour the facilities, meet some of the players, and also meet some of the other recruits that are in their recruiting class. So Kamani Mclean, probably the biggest name in Tuscaloosa this past weekend, number 4 overall player in the country out of Lakeland, Florida. Definitely a major target for the Crimson Tide. 5-star cornerback, has a great relationship with T-Rob, Ellis Robinson, new DB's coach at Alabama. I think everything went great with him. I mean, he had a really good time. Really enjoyed spending time with T-Rob and Coach Saban, and definitely somebody that Alabama has been making a really strong push for over the course of the last several months. And I think this was a big step in the right direction for Alabama, just getting him on campus, getting him, accustomed to being around the different players on the team and seeing the coaching staff and being around Coach Saban. So big weekend for him in Tuscaloosa. I think they did a great job. He's going to come back for an official visit a little bit later down the road. Would not be surprised if he comes back, maybe for a spring practice or potentially the spring game. But definitely somebody that has high interest in Alabama and is going to have high interest in Alabama all the way until the end of his recruitment. But kind of, with some of these big time recruits, but somebody like Kamani Mclean is not in a rush to make a decision. You just have to, kind of chip away every single time you get them on campus or you have a phone conversation with them. You never really press these guys to commit. You start pressing these elite guys to commit, they start to look elsewhere. So I think Alabama's doing a good job there, and they're going to be in the running for a long time.
Yeah, you got to be patient with the big time recruits. Alabama, of course, on a roll now in the defensive back area. Already 2 commitments in this 2023 class. Like you said, T-Rob in town now as well. Guys, we get into the show tonight. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Help our page grow. We want to get this page to the size of Bryant-Denny Stadium. We say that a lot. That's only 100,000, guys. We're getting close to that, into the 70s now, so we appreciate your support as we continue to grow. And, guys, get in the comments. Let us know what you think about these top recruits, about Junior Day, about some of these out-of-state guys, which is where I want to continue next. A couple of out-of-state receivers in town this weekend, Jalen, Hale, and Bryson Rogers. Another couple of big-time names. Where does their recruitment stand after their visit to Tuscaloosa, and what are your thoughts on these 2 receivers?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hale, one of the best receivers in the country. Make an argument as a 5-star recruit. Definitely somebody that Alabama has seen before. They like him a lot. They've been pressing hard for him, and definitely have high interest. I mean, we've seen Alabama recruit the state of Texas extremely well the last several years. They're going to continue to do so. And Jalen Hale is one of those guys that they're certainly pressing hard for. He said he had a great time, really enjoyed spending time with the coaches. Said he enjoyed seeing all the different facilities. He did go to camp at Alabama last summer, but this was kind of his first time to really tour the campus and see everything. So really liked it. Really liked it all. And I think for Alabama to have a chance with him, they're going to have to get him back on campus another time, which he will, for an official visit a little bit, down the road, which is going to be, probably this summer. May stretch it out until the fall. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I remember last summer, Shaz Preston made his first trip to Tuscaloosa back in June, and I said, Alabama's going to need to get him back on campus. They ended up getting him back on campus for the Champions Cookout. Then we started thinking, they're going to have a really good chance to potentially get him down the road. So he made a few trips back to Alabama. They ended up getting him. So that's what they have to do with some of these top end guys, some guys that are out of state but haven't had a chance to visit that much, especially a guy like Jalen Hale, one of his first real visits to Alabama, getting a chance to really see everything and just getting used to the coaching staff there. So, yeah, I mean, they're certainly making a big push for Jalen Hale, and I certainly expect him to make a trip back to Alabama down the road. Now, with Bryson Rogers, this is a kid out of Florida, not originally from Florida, but lives in Florida now, lives in Tampa area. This is a guy that has visited Alabama 3 times, was at Alabama last summer, attended a game in Tuscaloosa during the season, now gets back for junior day. Definitely has a lot of interest there in Alabama. I would say they're probably in his top 2, top 3. He says he's going to get back for an official visit. Doesn't know when he's going to take that official visit yet, but definitely going to come back for an official. Said he, really likes the opportunity that he sees at Alabama. The way that they develop players. Obviously, wide receiver. I mean, what better place to play than at Alabama if you're a receiver right now, especially knowing the quarterbacks that are on campus, the guys who are going to be blocking for you on that offensive front. Alabama recruits so well there, so definitely a big attraction for wide receivers. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at wide receiver in this recruiting class, because as we know, there are some priority positions in Alabama's class, and that's, defensive back, defensive line. I think that at the wide receiver position, after signing several wide receivers in the last 2 recruiting classes, 9 wide receivers in the last 2 classes, they're going to be a little bit more selective this year. I don't think they're going to sign 4 or 5. I do think, I would be surprised if it's only 2. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be 3. So I'll say 3 wide receivers in this 2023 recruiting class. And, Bryson Rogers is definitely somebody that they like a lot. Now they're going to be bringing in, different players throughout the month of March, April, obviously the summer. You got to kind of wait and hold some spots for some of these guys, because remember, Kobe Prentice last summer ends up coming to camp, and if you take a lot of commitments early in the process, maybe you miss out on somebody like Kobe Prentice down the road. So they're going to have a lot of different guys in Tuscaloosa over the course of the next couple months. Guys like Brandon Ennis, you have Shelton Sampson, 2 5-star wide receivers out of state that both have high interest in Alabama. Hakeem Williams from South Florida definitely has high interest in Alabama. He's going to be coming to Tuscaloosa sometime this spring. So a lot of guys that are out there, a lot of guys that they have a lot of interest, that Alabama has a lot of interest in. So kind of wait and see what's going to happen there. But definitely some big names at the wide receiver position that they're certainly interested in, and certainly a lot of guys have interest in Alabama.
Yeah, it truly has become wide receiver in the last few years. And right now, a lot of young depth at wide receiver. Going to be interested to see how this class comes in and, makes their mark with the Crimson Tide here. Kobe Prentice, you mentioned, an in-state guy. Alabama making a big in-state push with this class already. And one guy, Peter Woods, seems like a lock for Alabama. He visited this weekend along with a couple other guys. Tony Mitchell in town, Jonzepierre as well. But like I said, Woods seems like he is the lock out of all of these in-state guys to this point. Still no commitment quite yet, though. What has been the holdup with Peter Woods to this point?
Well, we're in March. I mean, I have to admit, I am surprised that he is not committed to Alabama yet. And even though he's got all the time in the world to make a decision, this is an in-state kid who grew up an Alabama fan. Always dreamed of playing at Alabama. Has been to Tuscaloosa countless times, not just for unofficial visits with Alabama, but just driving down to Tuscaloosa, hang out with friends. You have a couple of his former teammates already on campus, and Jeremiah Alexander, and also Traquan Fagan, sorry. And then you also have his cousin Amari Kite, who's also an Alabama player. So a lot of connections there. But this is certainly a guy that we expect in Alabama's class eventually. I don't know when that's going to happen, but definitely somebody that we'd probably all be surprised if he ended up going somewhere else. But this is his second time to visit Alabama already in 2022. I'm about to say 2023. Kind of gets confusing when you say when you're talking about the 2023 class in the year 2022, but he's a 2023 guy, and he has visited Alabama twice already in 2022. So a couple big visits for him. He's still enjoying the process a little bit. I know he likes Clemson a lot. He likes Georgia. Probably going to take a few more visits. May wait and stretch it out, take some officials during the summer, then make that decision. I'll be shocked if it goes beyond my dog is going absolutely crazy right now. So if y'all hear that, that's my crazy dog who knows who
Just
is
trying to give his input
right
today.
So yeah, I'm guessing my son has just gotten home from daycare, but I definitely think that we'll see a decision from him before the start of his senior season. Now with Tony Mitchell, really intriguing recruitment just because he's been really quiet about things over the course of the last few months. And he's taken a lot of visits, has gone out to Texas A&M, Georgia, Florida. I think I want to say he visited Clemson at one point, but those are all schools that that are pretty high on his list. He hasn't really said when he's going to make a decision, but he did make a trip to Tuscaloosa this past weekend. Jonzepierre, outside linebacker from Eufaula High School, big kid. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. Camped at Alabama last summer, and that's really when they first saw him and got a chance to really evaluate him. They wanted to see him a little bit more during the season, even though they offered him last summer. I think they still wanted to see him a little bit, in terms of game film, junior highlights, stuff like that. Get him back on campus for junior day. I think they were really impressed when they saw him on campus this past weekend. There's really been kind of an increase in terms of their push for him. Is he going to make a decision anytime soon? Probably not. He may wait a little while, take some more visits, enjoy the process, but definitely somebody that I can see in Alabama's recruiting class to go along with Peter Woods. As far as predicting Tony Mitchell right now, not ready to predict him for Alabama just yet. Want to kind of see what's going to happen with this defensive back class, because if Alabama fans who watch this show remember, there are already 2 defensive back commitments on board with Jahil Hurley, Elliott Washington. A lot of other guys that are out there. Kamani Mclean, as we just mentioned, visited Alabama this past weekend. Got some other big names that are going to be visiting over the course of the next couple months, including Caleb Downs, Terrence Love, 2 elite safeties from the state of Georgia who are going to visit for spring practice. So not saying Tony Mitchell's not a take. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there's so many defensive backs that are going to be visiting, that are going to be that have high interest in Alabama. So it's going to be interesting kind of see what happens with this defensive back class. Do they kind of load up early? They have 2 commitments. Will they get maybe another or maybe 2 more, over the course of the next couple months? That's really going to eliminate some spots. So who are you going to hold out for? Which prospects are you going to hold out for, wait for all the way until the end? Because there may not be many spots once we get into once we get past the summer months, once we get past June, July, once we kind of get into August, and if some of these guys are still available and haven't made decisions yet, their spot may not still be available.
Guys, keep hitting that like button for me. Get in the comments. Let us know what you think about these in-state guys. What is it going to take to keep some of these guys in the heart of Dixie, like Peter Woods, Tony Mitchell? Like you said, these spots filling up in the defensive back group. So we turn now to the offensive line, though. Guy Requez McElderry, not committed to Alabama, committed to the University of Georgia at this point, but he did return this weekend, and he had a chance to talk to him about his visit. And this is a guy that's shown a lot of interest in Alabama recently. Do you see a flip happening here?
I do. I'll be kind of surprised if he ends up not flipping to Alabama. And this is a kid who grew up a diehard Alabama fan in an Alabama household in Anniston, Alabama. He committed to Georgia about a week after he received his offer from Alabama. So Georgia started recruiting him pretty early in the process. They offered him last summer. He ends up announcing a decision date. I think it was kind of early November when he announced that decision date for a late November commitment. Ends up committing to Georgia. So about a week prior, he received that offer from Alabama. So they really didn't start recruiting him heavily until about late November. So after over the course of the last few months, they've really kind of stepped things up with him. He's got a great relationship with Eric Wolford, who started recruiting him when he was at South Carolina a couple years ago. Raquez told me, he said, that's the very first coach I ever talked to. So there's a really strong connection there. Really likes the coaching staff a lot. Coach Saban said he went back down to Tuscaloosa with his entire family. So there's a lot of interest there. Obviously, we know with Georgia, Matt Luke stepped aside, no longer the offensive line coach, but as of right now, he's still committed to Georgia, and we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens. But he did say that he's going to be back for Alabama's spring game in April. So we'll be watching. I think we'll all be watching him pretty closely that weekend and see if something potentially happens.
Oh, yeah. Going to be a fun weekend. April the 16th is going to be the spring game, A day for Alabama. Spring practice coming up this Friday, guys. We're going to have a lot of coverage for you. So be sure to turn on that bell so you can get notified when we post videos on our Alabama football YouTube page. Some offers extended this weekend as well to some of these 2023 kids. Which of these offers stood out to you? Is there anybody that you're really excited the Crimson Tide gave an offer to this weekend?
Yeah, I think when you get to the weekend and you start seeing all these tweets, all these different kids announcing their offers from Alabama, everybody kind of gets excited because you start seeing guys that, they may not have, 30, 40 scholarship offers right now. It may be offer number 4, number 5, or number 10. A lot of these guys who came in this weekend did receive offers from Alabama, but you still have to you still have to show out. You still have to come back. You have to get seen during camp. You still have to get evaluated. So it's kind of tricky when people say, "Oh, I was offered by Alabama." Most of these kids kind of understand. It's contingent on coming back to camp. Showcasing yourself, making sure Alabama has taken somebody at that position that does have a committable offer. But there was one guy that I think Alabama is really high on, and that's Bryce Thornton out of Milton High School in Alpharetta, Georgia. This is a kid that is only a 3-star. I know that sometimes worries Alabama fans, but as we saw kind of last year with guys like Amari Neblack and Kobe Prentice, if Alabama extends you an offer, even if you're a 3-star, you're probably a pretty good football player. And this is definitely somebody that Alabama has very high interest in. I think they're really going to start making a big push for. It doesn't have a ton of offers just yet, but Alabama is one of his bigger ones, and definitely are probably, I guess, the biggest one to date. And he measured in at 5'11", 190 pounds. During his trip to Tuscaloosa this past weekend. Alabama really likes him at free safety. Could also play the nickel, but this is definitely somebody that I would keep a very close eye on if I'm an Alabama fan in terms of potentially becoming a part of Alabama's 2023 recruiting class. Bryce Thornton, big offer for him. Got a chance to talk to him the other day. I mean, he was absolutely blown away by the offer. Enjoyed spending some time with Coach Saban. So that he is coming back to camp this summer, and kind of get a really a firm understanding of where Alabama wants to use him in the secondary. Obviously, they want to use him. They want to work him out so they can kind of figure out exactly where they want to use him. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on. But like I said, we saw a lot of offers that got extended. Several in the 2023, a few in the 2024 recruiting class. But once again, the majority of these offers and majority of offers that you see kind of throughout the spring. So February, March, April, those are all really, we like you. We still want to see you in camp. You still need to come back, work out in front of Coach Saban before you can pull that trigger. But in terms of Bryce Thornton, I think this is a guy that they really like a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if they, if he wanted to commit before the summer, I wouldn't be surprised if they took him. But I think he's going to stretch it out a little while longer before making that decision.
Bryce Thornton, one of many, like you said, that received offers this weekend. Guys, if you want to stay updated with these offers, go follow Andrew Bone on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone and turn on the notifications there. I, for one, definitely have those notifications turned on, and I'm constantly in the know. So you guys go do the same there on Twitter. Ellis Robinson is one of the best sophomores in the country. I know he also visited the Crimson Tide this past weekend, and to this point, it seems like Alabama is really in the driver's seat. Where do you think his recruitment goes, and when do you see him maybe making a commitment?
Yeah, I mean, even though it's junior day, you're still going to have a lot of other underclassmen, 2024, 2025, 2026 recruits that are going to be invited to Tuscaloosa. And Ellis Robinson, definitely one of the best defensive backs, one of the best overall players in this 2024 recruiting class, number 52 overall in the Rivals 100. I know some sites have him as a top 5 overall player in the country. So this is a big time player out of IMG Academy, originally from Connecticut, but has visited Alabama. I think he's visited 4 times already, but he hadn't been back since he was 12 years old. Said he camped at Alabama when he was younger, and the last trip was when he was 12 years old. So he's a little bit bigger than he was a few years ago, and definitely somebody that Alabama is pushing for. They really like in this 2024 recruiting class, one of their top overall targets. Said he thought about making an early decision, but after talking to his family, he wants to wait it out a little bit, enjoy some visits this summer, potentially make a decision, after his junior season. So we'll see kind of what happens. He says he's going to make a top 10. Alabama will definitely be included in that, and I think they're in the driver's seat for Ellis Robinson, and I think they're going to be in the driver's seat for a while.
Yeah, really talented youngster here, a 4-star, like you said. Measuring there at 6 foot 175, to be a great get for the Crimson Tide out of the class of 2024. That's down the line. Alabama fans, of course, always hungry for what is next. We could probably make that our slogan on this show. Alabama fans wanting to know what is next. So as we talk about these next few months, what visits do you expect, offers, and commitments can we see coming up here?
Well, you're going to see a lot of different recruits that are going to visit Alabama throughout the next really the next month and a half, really all the way up until the spring game. And then you have a little bit of a downtime until summer camps begin. But, we're going to see, the top quarterback targets come into town. You're going to see Arch Manning and Nico Iamaleava visit Tuscaloosa over the course of the next month. They did have one quarterback in town this past weekend, and Eli Holstein is a Texas A&M commitment, which is pretty intriguing because this is his second time to visit Alabama since he's been committed to Texas A&M. So obviously still some interest there, but everyone wants to talk about Nico Iamaleava and also Arch Manning, and for good reason. These are guys who have expressed heavy interest in Alabama throughout the course of the last year, and I certainly think that Alabama's going to have a chance to land either one of those prospects. But if they don't, we'll see what happens with Eli Holstein. Now, we're going to see some other top recruits that are make their way to Tuscaloosa. Brandon Ennis is coming into town in, first weekend in April, 5-star wide receiver. You're going to see, a lot of offensive linemen that are going to visit Alabama. Eric Wolford, the new offensive line coach, has really been, knocking it out of the park with a lot of these top end guys that we've talked to. Miles McVay, who is a Rivals 100 lineman from Illinois, visited Alabama's junior day back in January. Says he's going to be coming into town later this month. So you're going to see a lot of offensive linemen, defensive backs, you name it. It's going to be covered up over the course of the next couple months, leading up until the Alabama spring game, which, everybody always gets, so focused on who's going to make it in for the spring game. Don't worry about that. Look at who's going to be visiting over the course of the next month and a half leading up to the spring game. So if they visit now and they don't visit for the spring game, hey, guess what? They visited, they spent time with the coaching staff. When you get, on campus for the spring game, it's, one of those situations where there's so many kids on campus, you don't get a chance to spend as much time with the coaching staff as if you come in, for a practice or a scrimmage before the spring game starts. So getting those guys on campus maybe before A-Day is a little bit more important than getting them on campus for A-Day. So we'll kind of see what happens over the course of the next month and a half as far as visits go, but it's going to be pretty busy. We'll have a lot covered on BamaInsider.com.
We certainly will, guys. Go check that out as well at BamaInsider.com. And don't forget, subscribe to the page because, like Bone said, we're going to have a lot of coverage on all things in the recruiting world and on the team side as well. Alabama football revving it up here this Friday, March 11th. So be sure to subscribe. Hit that like button one more time before we get out of here and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about this junior day, everything going on in the world of recruiting. But before we get out of here tonight, Bone, your final thoughts as we wrap it up on this March 8th episode.
Well, things are starting to pick back up recruiting wise. Obviously, things are picking back up NFL wise. We've seen a lot of big news in the NFL world over the course of the last 24 hours with Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, obviously the Calvin Ridley news, which shocked everybody, and Cam Robinson getting franchise tagged by the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got basketball coming up. I mean, this is March, so you get a chance to watch conference tournaments and get excited about making some brackets next week, and I'm sure throwing those brackets into the trash can after the first round because it's so bad, like it is every single year. But it's March. I'm excited about it. As far as recruiting goes, as far as watching basketball, as far as watching spring practice. So it's an exciting time.
It certainly is. This is March. It's madness, of course, guys. Thank you for joining us tonight. For Andrew Bone, my name is Trey Annity. Until next week, this has been Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting on Bama Insider. Have a great week, everybody.